So first of all, Ian, you've had a pretty remarkable story in your life. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and your path to the Italian national team?
Yeah, so I was born in Dublin in Ireland, and yeah, always had this sort of dream as a kid to play international rugby, and was fortunate enough when I left school that I was selected into the Leinster Academy. So it was at the time when Checa was there, and Leinster was sort of starting to become a real dominant force in European rugby. So yeah, the sort of pathway was going in the right direction, playing for underage Irish teams and junior World Cups and all that sort of stuff. And then, unfortunately, in 2010, sort of my life changed in a dramatic way on the field, playing a club game, playing for my university. Actually, I just went into a ruck after a couple of minutes in this top of the table clash, and my teammate unfortunately stood on my face, and his stud caught my face and my eyeball, and my eyeball burst and perforated. So yeah, it was a bit of a shock, and the vision sort of went straight away. But I had emergency surgery straight away, which enabled me actually to regain about 50% vision after about it was maybe sort of a 10-week, well, maybe even less, like maybe an 8-week period. I was able to get back some vision, so started back playing again under Joe Schmidt's his first year with Leinster, and yeah, things were going well. I managed to get myself from the academy up to the first team, and just about a year and a half from the initial injury, unfortunately, due to complications, cataracts developing, and then unfortunately just my retina detached. So age 21, I was left with zero vision in my left eye. So that led me to the decision that trying to play professional rugby with sort of one eye, and particularly playing out half, was going to be a pretty difficult thing. So I stopped playing age 21. Always had a fascination with coaching, and moved over, got a job opportunity in Italy, in a town called Udine, so northeast Italy. And yeah, I was really happy there, but it was just always, there was this sort of burning desire to go back and play, and I never really wanted to give it up, and felt that I wanted to do things on my own terms. So there was never any eye protection available. I remember my brother was over with me, and we were just sort of butting heads together, thinking, Ian can still pass a ball, he can still kick a ball, he can still tackle, run, do all the things that are needed to perform at a high level. Just this one particular issue with his eye, and I was actually gouged a couple of times as well when I went back playing. So those sort of things sort of made me want to have some form of protective eyewear. So yeah, we got in contact with they were known as the IRB, and it's now World Rugby. And yeah, the goggles became protective eyewear. Rugby goggles became available in 2014. Grabbed one of the first pair, started playing with the club that I was coaching. So the lowest level of Italian rugby. So you can imagine what sort of fitness levels were amassed by some of the players there. But like, it was good for me just to get back and get muddy and feel tired and have a beer after a game. So yeah, managed to work my way up the ranks through Italian rugby, and subsequently then in 2017, because I'd lived there. The rule is obviously the 3-year rule, the residency rule. Because I hadn't played for Ireland at senior level, I could represent Italy. So in 2017, having moved over in 2012, but I represented Italy and went on to play 9 times up until my last game was last year in the pre-World Cup game. So that's sort of in a very small, in a short space of time. That's basically what's happened.
And looking forward to next weekend, what are some of your best Six Nations memories?
Yeah, I can't say too many because I never won a Six Nations game. So no, I think whenever you play, sort of the first of everything is obviously pretty special. So we played against, I think the first game was against Scotland. So to arrive at Murrayfield, now played obviously a few times against Edinburgh there, but it's different when the stadium's full, and sort of to get the bagpipes playing in front of your bus, sort of sends, your hairs on the back of your neck stand up. So that would obviously be pretty special, but still frustrated, never actually had that elusive win.
And yeah, as you mentioned, you've got 9 caps for Italy. Who are some of the best players you played with and against on the international scene?
Yeah, there's I've been fortunate enough to play with a few and against a few. So I think obviously the standout from an Italian point of view would obviously have to be Sergio Parisse. All the plaudits he rightly deserves through his whole career. I mean, he's still going. I mean, I watched Toulon Racing there last week, and he's still doing things that are, amazing. But if you saw the professional levels that he takes before, during, and after training, there's you can see why at his age he's still performing to the level he's at. No, I think what other players? I mean, certainly even playing against Owen Farrell, sort of his ruthlessness, and even just when I was at Leinster, I went from school, which was a non-rugby school, to training up against a backline which had Chris Whitaker, Felipe Contaponi, Gordon Darcy, Brian O'Driscoll, Luke Fitzgerald, Gervin Dempsey, Rob Carney, Shane Horgan, Issa Nathewa. It's a bit different from school level. So no, I've been pretty lucky to play with some pretty special players.
And the Italy squad's just been announced then. From your inside perspective, who are some of the players to look out for in that squad?
Yeah, I think everyone, it's probably easy for me to talk about the out half position, but I think everyone's really excited about Paolo Garbisi. I think he's proven in the short space of time that he's a serious talent. He's got a real mature head on his shoulders. Obviously, I mean, I don't beat around the bush. We know Italy. It's not, results are not good enough, and we need to improve. And you can understand the frustrations from fans, but trust me, if fans are feeling it, players are feeling it 10 times harder. It's tough when you get into a rut, and it's almost like when Leinster started winning. It's like the All Blacks, you just get into a habit of winning, and unfortunately we're in the state of not getting that elusive victory. So I want to say, I think best opportunity will be against Wales this year. Obviously, I have to be careful who I'm talking to, but Wales.
Sorry, we all agree. We all agree.
We all agree. Okay, good. We're on the same page. But I think Wales are there for the taking. I think Italy, the scoreline didn't reflect one bit the previous game. So I think that could be a serious opportunity to get a win there.
And do you feel there are any players unlucky to miss out on the Six Nations squad?
Yeah, I think obviously the main one will be Minozzi, but obviously that's not due to selection. That's just due to him maybe needing a break, and he is a young man, and he's just moved over to England, and he didn't speak much English moving over there. So you can imagine it's I can understand me moving over to Italy as well in 2012 without the language. It can be a fairly lonely place and fairly difficult, and I think people realize rugby players are really fortunate enough, professional rugby players are really fortunate to be able to continue playing. But it's extremely difficult when the only time you're allowed outside is to train. You can't, particularly in Italy at the moment, you can't, go out for a coffee. You can't, you're very much resigned to the fact that you're in your hotel room. You go out, you do gym, you do pitch, and then you come back. So it can be mentally taxing. But I suppose some players are back in, like Federico Ruzza's back in. He missed out on the last squad, and I really rate him. He's got something different. He's not a physically imposing man. He wouldn't be someone who, would physically dominate you. Maybe someone like, in an English or a French pack, but he's got some seriously, his line out ability, his handling, his decision making, his skill set. I would hope he gets a good run.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Italy finished bottom last year, and they have for the last few seasons. But they did seem to improve in the Autumn Nations Cup, being really competitive against Wales and Scotland. Do you think they're improving?
Yeah, I think it's a results-based industry, isn't it? So it's all well and good talking about better performances, and we, even my time with Conor O'Shea and Mike Cat, we wouldn't. You go to win a game. I mean, that's what you prepare your whole life for, is to win in games. You prepare the whole week to make sure what particular things are Wales doing, what things can we manipulate them. So there's no, yes, performances maybe, particularly at the start. When we lost, was I think 42-0 in Cardiff. That's not a good start to any Six Nations campaign. So I suppose from when Franco started off in that game to when they last played Wales, obviously I think Italy obviously got a little bit better, and Wales, there was obviously a big decline there. But I think it's encouraging that you've got Paolo Garbisi, you've got, Canone, you've got Michele Lambero, who, is very highly thought after in Benetton, who's coming through. So there are a lot of young guys. Even the front row, you've got Fischetti, you've got Zilocchi. These guys are very, very good players, but they are very young and raw, and it takes, a good long while to get up to speed with international rugby and to get that. I mean, Alwyn Jones doesn't become a phenomenon overnight. It takes, a good number of caps, 20 caps at least, potentially, to really understand what international rugby is all about. So I think giving them the opportunity is definitely the right thing to do.
Do you think, touching on that then, do you think, apart from Wales, Italy are, obviously, you feel Italy are improving, but then the problem is everyone else is improving as well. So it's sort of about getting that lucky break, isn't it? And having a good game, catching like someone on their off day and getting that win, and then that inspires everyone else.
Yeah, well, you need to make your lucky break, I suppose. And the fact is that, yeah, you're right. I mean, the standard, and Connor would have alluded to this a lot, back maybe in the 90s, the early 2000s, you didn't have this standard of team that, and the facilities, the structure in other nations, unfortunately, and I know because I've lived it for 8 years, is well below in comparison to the other nations. So there's no real training center or anything like that. So where you've got, Ireland, you've got England, that are, specialized places where you go and train. So, those things take time even just to get, and then get funding for, and then whenever you get it, it takes time just to build up a culture in that. So like, I obviously am probably very biased when it comes to Italian rugby, but I see players, I mean, I name a list of Paolo Garbisi, Matteo Menozzi, Michele Campagnaro, Leonardo Ghiraldini, who's just retired, but Alessandro Zani. Like, these guys, any of these guys on their given day could start a game, I would argue, for a Wales, a Scotland. I'm talking about in their prime now. Obviously, Paolo is only 20; he's got a way to go. But the fact that Italy does produce these players would signify that there is a huge amount of talent. And I think, probably cutting over a little bit the discussion between Georgia and Italy, I think you still see that there is a technical difference, and I still think there is that little bit of a gap, and it's just Italy are stuck at the minute. You saw it in the World Cup whenever we played Canada. There was a 40 plus point difference, and it could have been more. And that's sort of the gap. Your Canadas, your Georgias. I think Italy are ahead of that. It's just the gap between Italy and the rest is sort of still quite substantial. But you only have to go back to our Six Nations a couple of years ago in 2019. We had should have beaten France at home, should have beaten, or was very close to beating Ireland, and Wales was an 11-point game. I think it was 11 or 9-point game. So I mean, we won't talk about the away results, but the home ones were, it's just so close. It's such small little fine margins at international level that are the difference between winning and losing. And just unfortunately, we haven't got that killer instinct yet. But I'm fully convinced Italy will be, I'm not going to say a dominant force, but are going to be a much more competitive force than what they have been.
And you touched upon two retired players now in Parise and Giraldini. How important were they in that Italian squad, and who are some of the new leaders in that squad now?
Yeah, well, I don't think Sergio's fully retired. I think that's who knows what's going to happen. I think he's pretty unlucky with the World Cup, the World Cup, and obviously COVID. But yeah, I think that's probably definitely an area that even Franco's probably looking to in terms of leadership roles. So there's a lot of young guys that have come through, and Luca Bigi, who is a really solid player, and I think he's a perfect choice to be captain because he's played for Benetton. He now plays with Zebre, so he's got that link. But he also wasn't an international starter up until maybe a year or year and a half or so ago, because Leo Ghiraldini was there. So the international scene to him is also quite new. So there's a lot of responsibility on his shoulders. But I think that's where whenever big leaders like Zani, like Geraldini, like Parisi maybe are back, that's sort of, it's a blank canvas, and then you see who's going to come through. So I would have, just looking from the outside, you would definitely go, Beezy definitely is one of those. But you've got leadership in different forms. You got guys that talk, you got guys that do stuff on the field, you got guys that keep other guys in line. So leadership, has many different forms.
Yeah, I just want to touch upon this quickly. In the Guinness Pro 14 this season, I think Benetton are yet to win a game. A few years ago, they looked like they were really improving, and I think they finished in the automatic Champions Cup places a few years ago. Any idea what's happened to them this year, and how much does that impact the form of the Italian national team?
Yeah, I'm obviously hugely disappointed, because that's, it was my club, and I was there for 4 years, and luckily enough in that 4-year period, as you said, we qualified for the quarterfinals, and we merited that. We played some really good rugby, and maybe it's a combination of things. Maybe people actually taking Benetton a bit more seriously, but that's by no means an excuse. I mean, that's Benetton guys would know that's not acceptable. So that's almost going back to 2015 when Benetton finished last. So again, I'm out of I'm not involved in the day in day out things. I want to see Benetton improve, obviously, but I think they've let the head coach go now. They're bringing in a whole new coaching staff, which they're announcing at the moment. So I wouldn't be able to put my finger on one specific reason. I think it's a combination of things. Potentially, COVID has hit every squad, but I think with Italian teams in particular, a lot of players, and you could argue the same for Scotland, but Scottish players, there's a lot more of them play abroad. A lot of, whenever you've got Italian Autumn Nations Cup, Six Nations, a lot of players go. I mean, you're talking about on average 13, 14, 15 players leaving, and that leaves a massive hole. And the underage system potentially is something, again, that the Italian Federation needs to look at. So whereas Ireland, you've got academy teams that train basically with first teams, they know exactly what's going on, so the transition is really smooth. Whereas Italy at the moment is just not, doesn't have that. You have your first team. Benetton only has one team. We don't even have a second team. Zebra doesn't even have a second team. So I think that gap as well, whenever internationals go away, is a bigger hole to fill than what it might be for other teams or for other countries.